Good evening, my friends all across the Chicagoland area and surrounding suburbs, I hope. This is your host, Jerry Vasilatos, and welcome to another Friday night edition of Chicago Corner, where all the news we report makes me feel like it's Groundhog Day. We've got a lot to cover from this week. Sadly, our opening story will be a recounting of something that just happened as I was on my way home. And I'm going to be finding out about a lot of these details also because this just broke as I was preparing the show. Apparently, gunfire erupted during a Shakespeare in the Park performance on the West Side in Columbus Park. But before I continue with going over this week's news recap, commentary, punditry, and analysis, I would like to first welcome my guest, host, my co-host for the evening, Ed Heller.
Hello, everybody.
Kit's going to be joining us a little bit later. I believe he had something he needed to take care of. But in the meantime, Ed and I are here to start off the show and cover the news. Ed, how's your week been so far?
It's not been too bad. Getting things done. The money's starting to come in again.
It's always good.
Yeah, it's rough when some of you may know, I was unemployed for quite a long period of time. And I know a lot of other people are in similar situations. Some of them working their way out. Some of them still looking for work. You got to help everybody out. Do what you can with what you have. And if you can be helpful in any way, even if it's like sharing a live stream, sharing somebody's, GoFundMe page, just putting in a good word for somebody. Sometimes I hate to say it, but it does take a village sometimes.
It takes a big network of people. Well,
yeah.
As our audience should know, Ed is a man of many talents. Ed, I met Ed when I first joined Hardlands Media last year. You were moderator for the Hardlands Media Show, but I knew that you were also, I guess, involved in moderating over here at Chicago Corner. Were you or were you not with Allie?
I was, and for a little while, I think I was even helping out on the live stream because I wanted to just get a little more involved with the back end of how the video production works around here. And some of you also know I redid like all of the 99 Perspectives website content to give these guys a fresh coat of paint, so to speak. So now we got the Hardlands Media page. I built the Chicago Corner page. We got all those Chicago Reacts and all the other pages that are there. And so you now have a way to get to see what's going on with us. 99perspectives.tv is the main website, and then there's a menu link. You can get to Hardlands Media. You can get to Chicago Corner. And all the other things that are going on. I know we got a little radio startup that we're trying to do called World Perspectives Radio Chicago. Lainey's heading that up, and she's doing a heck of a job over there.
She's in the live chat tonight, too.
Yes, I noticed that. Lainey does a show with Chip on World Perspectives Radio Chicago. It's a streaming channel now, but the goal is to also get it into a terrestrial broadcast station in the
radio signal and a transmitter.
So you'll find, there are limited amounts of individual or independent programming on there, but when they're not doing that, you got a nice mix of music to play along, and you can just go to the World Perspectives Radio Chicago page off of 99perspectives.tv, and they'll have links to get to all of that content.
Well, welcome everybody in the live chat. As everyone knows, I love being able to integrate our viewers' comments in the live chat. I want to welcome who we got here tonight. We've got Miguel H. We've got Kit, who's going to be joining us soon. We've got Ilhan Arturo Medina, my friend. And we got Lainey. We've got Kathy Powers. Yes, hashtag clown mayor. That's what we've got right now. Who else has joined us tonight? Love Tagore. Hey there. Love Tagore. I don't never know if it's Love Tagore or Love Tagore, so I hope I'm I'm pronouncing it right one way or the other. But before we waste too much more time, let me get into our first story. Let me bring up our screen here. Ed, I had a wonderful, this was like perfect weather today, wasn't it?
Well, I had most of my day inside
Ah.
because of the new job, but
I was
yeah.
spending the day on the beach with a very lovely companion. I'll just leave it at that. We had a nice time, but it was perfect weather. I haven't been to the beach
Oh,
for,
I didn't know that you let Oreo go on the beach with you.
no, Oreo is like slouching here right now on my desk. But maybe I'll bring Oreo the next time in one of those little pet carriers.
Yeah, I know
So,
when I got off work today, it was really hot outside.
yeah, it was good weather though. And I actually happened to be up in Highland Park. I was at the Highland Park beach, so I got a chance to see the memorial there. I actually saw the memorial earlier this week as well, which transitioning into our first story here regarding the ongoing Groundhog Day, what do we want to call it? Quality of gun violence. Every day, gun violence, gun violence, gun violence. So when I got home, actually, I did see this. I think one of you did one of you share it in the Slack, or maybe I just saw it on
I think
social
Lainey
media.
actually shared
Laney
that one
shared it.
with
That's right. So Laney shared it while I was on my way home. So we're going to learn about what happened as we read the story and then comment on it. So sadly, gunfire erupts during Shakespeare in the Park performance on the West Side. This comes to us from Pascal Sabino from Block Club Chicago. Get out of my water. You know what, Ed? I think this is going to, I came prepared for the show. I think that this is going to be a 2-beer night with these gun violence stories. You know, why don't I just crack one open right now? You got anything there?
Hold on a second. What kind of beer you got over there, Jerry?
Got a Miller Genuine Draft.
Oh, okay. We are not sponsored by Miller
No, we're
Genuine
not.
Draft. Okay.
Are you getting something ready on that end
What
or
do
no?
I have? I
Cheers.
have this. I have Mountain Dew throwback in my Las Vegas Siegfried and Roy collectible pint glass, which is pretty cool. I never actually got to see Siegfried and Roy, but when I managed to get to the Mirage Hotel in my large bout of gambling that one year I was able to afford to travel.
Refresh my memory. Didn't one of their tigers eat one of them?
I think that is what happened. Yeah,
Ooh.
we probably could look in and get the specifics on that, but yeah,
All right. Well,
don't mess with
let's drink
don't
a
mess with
toast.
don't
Let,
mess with tigers,
no, let's
ladies
drink a
and
toast to
gentlemen.
hopefully they're recover. They're
To the
however they recovered.
to the spirits of Siegfried and Roy and their tigers. Some of them might still be alive.
Oh, that tastes good. I haven't had a beer for a while. All right, so let's go back to the story though. All right, so this is what happened today. Why isn't it coming up? There we go. All right. One mom who had her kids lay down to shield them from the gunfire said she is rethinking taking them to future summer events. No child should have to experience this because of where they live, she said, which seems to be everywhere now.
Yeah.
Now, this photograph that comes from Block Club Chicago is young people laying down to avoid gunshots at Columbus Park. The shooting happened during a Shakespeare in the Parks performance. Out of Austin, a family-friendly theater event at Columbus Park ended in chaos Thursday night after someone fired shots while performers were on stage. I'm really preventing myself from making a joke. That's not the way to criticize the performance, but there I let it out. Okay. I mean, look, this shit is so absurd. I've got a gallows humor mentality every time I read this stuff. It's not funny.
Yeah, no,
It's
it isn't.
tragic,
But
but
I
it's just
mean,
like
at
every
this
day.
at the same time, you know, it puts things into your head. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, when I read about this, they were talking about Shakespeare in the Park, and they heard gunshots, and the first thing I thought about was that Baz Luhrmann's version of Romeo and Juliet.
Right.
If you haven't seen it, it's a pretty good take on that subject. I mean, there's a scene where they're at a gas station, and it's the Capulets and the Montagues, and they're calling they're calling their guns swords. You know, that's how they get around that.
Yeah, it was an upgraded. It was kind of a contemporary.
Yeah, they did a
Making the story
contemporary
contemporary.
take on Romeo and Juliet, which I thought was actually pretty good conversion. But yeah, so that was what was in my head when I heard Shakespeare in the Park and gunshots.
Well, the gunfire happened about 6:45 p.m., just 15 minutes into the Shakespeare in the Park's performance at Columbus Park, 500 South Central Avenue, police said. Witnesses saw families duck for cover and lay down on the grass to avoid getting shot as other people in the crowd sprinted from the playground where the shooting started. No one was wounded, thank Christ, but a parked car was hit by gunfire, police said. The free event saw musicians, actors, and dancers performing songs riffing on popular scenes from the plays by William Shakespeare, part of a series of pop-up events in parks from Chicago Shakespeare Theater. The shooting started just three songs into the event, said Nicole Miano, who had brought her 2 children to enjoy the park on a warm summer night. These sounded like firecrackers to me. Frankly, I was in a little bit of shock, she said. People were running and there were a lot of commotion. My friend said, get down, get down. I think, was it a couple shows back, we were either talking to Kira on the air. I think it was on the air. It was in a conversation. I don't remember if it was on the air or not. It was on the air. Kira doesn't want to go to public events anymore. And I don't blame her. I mean, I'm not scared into not going out, but we were also talking about the fact that you don't know anymore if it's fireworks or firecrackers or gunshots. In my neighborhood, I routinely hear what could be one or the other. And I think the only way I'm able to discriminate which is one or the other is if the pops are like, it's fireworks. But whenever I hear someone's shooting rounds, because I don't think firecrackers go off that way.
Well, I mean, it depends, but honestly, it might just be the time of the year. I mean, we're in the back half of July. I'm leaning more toward gunshots now than thinking they're fireworks anymore.
Yeah.
Once we get into August, we're probably a lot more sure.
Miano and her kids were watching the Shakespeare performance from the back of the audience near the playground when the shooting started. When she realized what was happening, she had her kids lay down to shield them from the gunfire, she said. A boy with a gun ran nearby, Miano said. The incident made Miano fear for her kids' safety and how they will be impacted growing up around the threat of gun violence. No child should be traumatized unnecessarily or have to experience this because of where they live, Miano said. There's other events coming up in the parks and that I have on the calendar. I'm frankly thinking about whether I will take my kids to them, she said. I probably won't take my kids to the summer dances at Grant Park or Millennium Park because things happen there too. The rest of the show was canceled. Officers arrived at the park shortly after, and they are investigating. A police spokesperson said no one's been arrested yet. Keith Yearman was photographing the performance when he started hearing loud. I think that maybe these are what these black and white pictures are. Keith Yearman was photographing the performance when he started hearing loud noises he initially mistook for fireworks. It wasn't until he saw crowds of people scrambling for cover and running from the playground that he recognized the 15 loud bangs he heard were gunshots. This is what we saw in the video at Highland Park, July 4th. People there enjoying something and then chaos. Fear didn't strike me in the moment. It didn't really register until later. I've never been through anything like that before, and I hope to never go through it again, Yearman said. Yearman saw staff members for Shakespeare performance hide behind equipment. He also saw the director waving her hands to stop the show and get the performers to safety. Yearman snapped a photograph of one of the gunmen running through the park. He said, I saw a bunch of people from the audience start to run. Blah, blah, blah. I just it's the same story with just a couple details changed every time we have to report on this shit. Ed, I find myself speechless whenever we cover this stuff because...
who has to communicate to who to tell people that it's not cool to go running around with guns in the middle of the city or anywhere in the city?
Dude, who do we have to communicate with that's
Stop shooting people?
Positions of representation that are actually doing anything to prevent the epidemic of guns falling into the wrong hands all the time. I mean, look, so many possible ways to attack this problem. All right. Well, we thought we had a way to attack the problem with the background checks with FOID cards for people legally getting their guns. We saw how shitty that was when the Illinois State Police granted the FOID card to the nut that shot up July 4th in Highland Park. Right now, who knows if these shooters at the Columbus Park got their guns legally or not? But if you can't stop the guns from getting on the streets because we don't want to repeal that fucking Second Amendment, what do I say? Hashtag regulate ammunition because it's not a right. I go
I,
ahead.
I have mixed feelings about gun laws. So I mean, I don't want to delve too deep into it, but my first thinking is that, well, okay, this could be gangs
Yeah,
distributing guns
I think so.
to their members. In which case, it could be a handful of people getting weapons from out of state and bringing them in. And second, then nobody in these neighborhoods is going to is putting any pressure on them to stop firing and killing each other. You know stop using these weapons in broad daylight, chasing each other with guns. You're going to kill each other. You're going to kill your friends. You're going to kill your families, and you're going to end up dead probably. It's not a winning situation. And yeah, and at this, we've said before, and kids joining us
Yeah,
too.
actually, I just saw that comment, and there he is. I was opening my Slack to get the link to you. Sorry, Kit.
Oh,
We've
good.
got
Don't worry about it.
Glad you're here. Thanks,
we've
Ed, for sharing it. I was
we've had we've had a problem with neighborhoods not getting the support that they need, financially, social programs, community support, financial support, all the stuff that would probably minimize a lot of the gun violence that's happening in the city. Is it going to eliminate it? Probably not. I mean, you can't. I mean, you can't expect every solution that you try to have 100% success rate. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try.
I'm getting some kind of echo or feedback. I'm not sure from which microphone, but Kit, it seemed to start when you came in. Is there anything there that maybe you can?
I can fix it.
Okay, thank you. So let me very quickly wrap up some details on this article. Then I want to get Kit's insight because although he's joining us late, I'm sure he's got a lot to share with his thoughts. Now, the Chicago Shakespeare Theater canceled 2 performances scheduled for Friday and Saturday at Ogden Park and Ping Tom Park because of the incident. Executive Director Chris Henderson said. The organization is working with the Park District to plan future events and provide support to its company members. Everyone is safe and no one is injured, thank heavens. But we recognize and are concerned about how unsettling and distressing this was for all involved, Chris said in a statement. We remain committed to the neighbors and communities that have made the Chicago Shakespeare in the Parks program so dear to our hearts for 11 years. We will be back and we will continue to create together.
I just want to say I think it's a mistake that they canceled their scheduled performances.
It wasn't going to happen again with you can imagine the police presence that's going to increase at these other public events, right? So that's basically
they're going
like
under the
into the
assumption
terrorists.
that there's always going to be somebody running by shooting a gun.
But Ed, isn't that what we're? I mean, yes, but
these are just the ones that are getting reported, right, Jerry? It's not happening in every square yard of Chicago right now.
I think it's happening in more square yards than you're aware of than we're hearing about, though, Ed.
I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm saying
this was kind of an
overreaction.
No, I agree. I agree that shutting down these other events was an overreaction, but they're trying to spread the sense of security, right? Because we're seeing this happening everywhere, even though it's not reported as equally. I mean, look, what happened in Highland Park was a horrific tragedy, but this is what people in neighborhoods all across the rest of Chicago are dealing with every day. And the week we reported on that, I believe Kira mentioned on the Tuesday night show, when I couldn't join you guys, I apologize, that the amount of shootings in Chicago exceeded the amount of the victims and those that were injured in the Highland Park incident. Now, we're not like making one more important than the other.
No.
But, when you see the attention on, one community, while our community in the city literally is just so used to this shit. We become so desensitized to it. The point that they shut down these 2 other performances, maybe they also assumed, Ed, that people were freaked out from that one, what happened today, and wouldn't show up. Who knows? Kit, we're talking so much. Why don't you jump in?
So here's the thing I have to take from this. It's going to get worse. And here's the reasons why. There is a growing anger in this country, and that has to deal with a lot of economic and social issues that are happening here to a lot of people. And we have to remember that during the pandemic, a lot of us, the whole country was abandoned by our lawmakers. And our lawmakers could have, in many ways, done something revolutionary, and that is make our lives better, understand that all of us were put in an extraordinary situation that none of us have seen in most of our lifetime, save for maybe our grandparents, great-grandparents. And you have a lot of scared, unstable, frightened people out there. And with a country where guns, especially here in America, where guns outnumber the people now, because that's what it's come to. And look, Jerry, I have to agree with your point. Hey, look, regulate ammunition, but at this point, until we get leaders to do something about it, it's going to remain this way. And what we have to do now is look at the fundamental problem. That is the current leadership. I'm not concerned about somebody who is in depression or in economic depression or struggling with making gains with, or making their way with 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. My issue is with the people who are on the top, who are in the ivory tower looking down on us as we all consume each other.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when our government chose to abandon us, a lot of people lost everything. I mean, if we thought 2008 was bad, 2020 was the stepping stone of how things are going to get fundamentally worse. And a lot of Americans need to wake up to that you're not going to get help from the lawmakers. It's going to have to come from us. We're going to have to get out there in the streets, because if we want this violence to end, it's not through more funding of police. It's not through stricter laws. It's actually getting rid of the current leadership. They have no new ideas. And in Chicago, we have a key election year in which we can make things change. Now, I know we've all been bombarded with the statements of, oh, this is the most important election year of our lifetime. This election year for Chicago, for the office of mayor and for all the aldermanic seats, it's a key election year. And I'm saying this for key because we're at a crossroad. We as citizens of the city can choose to take it down a different path. It's not too late to save the city of Chicago from the hyper-segregation, from the economic depression. But in order to do this, we've got to get rid of the current leadership. Lori Lightfoot.
Yeah, no confidence. No confidence. Well, you look at the and look
no new ideas, Jerry.
Oh. Only ideas are to spend more money on the police department and pander to them. Like when these police officers' families came out regarding mental health this week, she's pandering. She's playing all sides all the time. Really solving any problems is what it comes down to. Am I lagging on that end?
A little bit, Jerry.
Looks like my
just a little bit. So
got the computer back.
Where things are situated. I just want to add this here. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
While this horrific shooting took place, I hope it's an eye-opening moment for a lot of people in the city of just what a lot of other communities all across Chicago have to deal with. And it's just not a Chicago issue. I know Fox News is going to run with more of the propaganda. Oh, violence in Chicago, violence in Chicago. Nothing new. But it's all over America. You want to bring in change, you got to get rid of the two-party system. You want to bring in change, you got to get rid of the current leadership because they don't work for you. They only work for the top 1%. And Lori Lightfoot, again, as a mayor, do we all really think she has the political courage and the backbone and even the heart to follow through and actually helping other people in Chicago? Jerry, Edward,
she's a Democratic chill. She's a plant. She's a tool of the Democratic Party maintaining order in the Midwest and in Chicago specifically.
Right.
That's what she is.
And I just want to say,
neoliberal Democratic Party.
Yeah, and what I want to say is, Jerry, Edward, and if Kira was here too, I think we all can agree. Is there any incident or any moment in Lightfoot's administration at which we could say, "Oh, she did good"? And if there ever was, there was never a follow-through. It was only words and statements, not deeds and actions. Lightfoot is someone who only cares about her ego. And it's under Lightfoot's administration, things have gotten worse in Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. Kathy Powers offers in the chat, more casinos and NASCAR, that'll help. Yeah. She was out of town a week ago to bring financial and technical businesses to the city because she brings in the money and it never gets spent on proactive solutions, just gets spent on more police, more reactive solutions while continuing to abandon the South and West. And, look, neighborhoods all over Chicago. I focus on the South and West Side because they're the most abandoned. But let's be honest, it's happening all over the city. The absolute dereliction of accountability, responsibility, and service to residents across the city. Now, transitioning into our next story, City Council approved the ordinance to combat drag racing and maintain the speed camera threshold. This comes to us from WGN 9. Chicago City Council approved new measures for police to combat drag racing in the city. Additionally, council voted to keep the city speed camera limit at 6 miles per hour. Look, I'm all for the drag racing thing until we get into our next one of Lori Lightfoot's solutions to bring money into the city, as Kathy just referenced with NASCAR. But this bullshit with the city's speed camera limits, look, we've been blue in the face talking about this how many shows? This speed camera threshold was never about safety. Okay? Let's make that clear. I watch a lot of social media.
I have to tell you, I'm sorry to interrupt, Jerry, but you're out of order here, Jerry. It's absolutely about safety, and I cannot emphasize enough how much money it's going to bring in because I'm emphasizing safety.
I show you out of order. If I were the man I was 5 years ago, I'd take a flamethrower to this place. Out of order. Who the hell do you think you're talking to?
That's how it's done.
It's bullshit, Lori. Okay, when Rahm Emanuel was mayor after the speed cameras were put in, the news did a Freedom of Information Act request and found out how many red light cameras the mayor's motorcade was speeding through across the city. Now, if it's really about safety, why would the mayor's motorcade blow off red lights and speed through the city? Rahm claimed, well, I paid all those citations, we paid for it. Doesn't matter that you're paying the citations. So basically you're saying it's okay to speed and pay the citations. That contradicts your claim that it's about safety, right?
It's totally okay, Jerry. It's okay for me because I am me, and you got to do what you got to do. But I don't have to deal with your problems anymore because I'm in Japan. Later, sucker!
My screen froze. I'm not sure. Was Ram up just now?
Yeah, he jumped in, bragged about being in Japan, and took off.
All right.
Again.
Just be forewarned. You might lose me here in a moment. My screen is really lagging on this end.
Okay.
Oh, I hate these goddamn computer issues. All right. So anyway, back to the WGN article. So drag racing and drifting have been issues for years in the city of Chicago. The city council unanimously voted Wednesday on an ordinance that will impose harsher fines for drifting and drag racing. It allows police to use picture and video evidence, camera detection of license plates for cars to track down vehicles and impound them. It would mean a $5,000 fine to get the vehicle out of the impound lot. Here's city council during that. Impound cars that drag race. After, what does it say? One of the hot spots for street racing for a long time was the parking lot at 71st Street and South Pulaski Road. If they know that this is a hot spot for street racing, where are the cops? Isn't that where you should mobilize the cops? When they say they know that's a hot spot and they're relying on pictures from what? The blue light cameras? Where are the cops?
Yeah,
But they claim they know this is a hot spot. It's like that's where you should then dispatch your units, right? Dozens of tire marks can be seen from people doing donuts and drifting in their cars, usually in the middle of the night. When I drive through downtown Chicago, guys, late at night, if I'm coming or going from somewhere, I see cops. You know where I see all the cops parked? Guess, Ed. Where do you think you see all the cops parked in downtown Chicago late at night?
In the donut shops, wayo.
That too. Around Millennium and Grant Park. That's where they are. Millennium Park, Grant Park, Michigan Avenue. Why aren't they at 71st Street and South Pulaski Road where they know that the drag racing is taking place?
Because,
thank you.
Jerry, you know that I have a curfew I have to enforce, that completely useless curfew around the bean, which, by the way, I'm going to have a second bean. We are doing a double bean. That's going to happen.
After one of those gatherings turned into a shootout in May, businesses in the area as well as police took more action. They put up concrete barriers and fencing to take away some of the space that was being used. Officers Alderman Brendan Riley of the 42nd all say the ordinance needs to be done. With the investments that my colleagues and I have been making in infrastructure for the police, like license plate reading cameras, these cars will pop up as hot as drag racers. And so using camera systems and good detective work, we can find where the folks are parking these cars and take them, whether they are not, Riley said. So I do think this will be an effective tool. Our police commanders have told us they're going to take full advantage of it. There's some typos in the article as I'm reading it. Riley was confident that this ordinance will pass city council and go into effect. The law enforcement officials agree, saying the new law will give officers the ability to crack down more effectively. You can see some of the videos where multiple times people have been struck by the cars as they're doing these donuts, said Police 8th District Commander Brian Sprain. Cars been hit in the parking lot, and when the police come, sometimes they take off out of the area very recklessly, causing further damage. So every aspect of it is just absolutely dangerous. I'm confused here. Don't we routinely see CPD in high-speed chases with people of color that have committed a traffic infraction?
Also, Jerry, don't we already have enforcement laws for a lot of these things? Reckless driving, that kind of stuff. The impoundment, okay, I can kind of see that, although, that's just a slippery slope.
Exactly.
Asset forfeiture.
Yeah, there you go. We talked about that previously.
Civil asset forfeiture, basically, if you're not aware, ladies and gentlemen, is where they can basically take your stuff and keep it. And
now,
they've been using that in their war on drugs forever. But then people get caught in the middle of that.
That's right.
Here's
a thought. Your car is stolen by one of these, and look, this is a long shot, but it's just an example of what you're talking about with the civil asset forfeiture issue. Someone steals your car, decides to go drag race with it, dumps your car. You report your car is stolen. Cops have the license plate and impound your car, and they don't give it back to you. You had nothing to do with the crime. That's what we're talking about with people caught in the middle of situations with civil asset forfeiture. Yeah, it's probably a long shot, but the fact that they haven't hammered out details like that are what make it that slippery slope that you're talking about.
Well, and I was also thinking along the lines of, well, the cops just want to be able to impound fancy cars so they can have them available to use when they want to use them. You know how it is. They're like, oh, man, we should impound that car. I want to drive that one around the city and bust perps.
Yeah.
Yes!
All right, so Alderman Anthony Beale's plan to raise the threshold on city speed cameras from 6 miles per hour over the limit back to 11 miles per hour was rejected. Interesting. In June, a committee narrowly voted Beale's plan to Wednesday's full city council vote. All right, so let's drag racing thing. I'm on board with like them dealing with it, but I'm still wondering, like, if they knew that where these hot spots are, why aren't the cops patrolling those hot spots? Before this
hot spots.
Right. Okay. So let me get this particular article down and set up my next transition here. All right, so here's the other part of that story. Speed limit for camera tickets will stay the same after city council votes down push to roll back the fines. All right, where am I going with this? I will tell you.
Hold on. I'm sorry, I'm just foreshadowing.
Right, it is. We talked about Rahm Emanuel and his propensity for his motorcade to blow off red lights, but they paid the fines, even though they could have run down the children he was always claiming to protect.
You can't catch me, sucker.
Thanks to the Tribune. Thanks to the Tribune. Thanks to the Tribune for their paywalls that make it so hard to bring up these stories. However, I did a little bit of digging. Do you know that, and this is not even before all this became this controversial recently, November 30th of 2020, the city dismissed red light camera tickets against Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot's security detail. Now, these are the red light tickets, not the speed cameras, but it's the traffic camera, right? The traffic camera network. Well, I got to get these ads down. All right. So, sorry, guys. Give me a moment here. Ads by Google. Get rid of the ads by Google block. Okay, so the city of Chicago dismissed the majority of tickets issued to Mayor Lori Lightfoot's security detail by red light and speed cameras, including some that were recorded at 2020, guys. This is from 2020, including some that were recorded at times when the mayor was scheduled to be attending non-city events, records show. Since Lightfoot became mayor in May of 2019, the police security detail assigned to her protection has received 13 tickets for speed and red light camera violations, and 10 of those have been dismissed, records show. Though city officials did not address specific questions about her whereabouts at the time each ticket was issued, listings in her official calendar show some were given at times when her calendar suggests she was on her way home from a personal event or en route to non-city breakfasts. 4 were issued at a time when her official calendar doesn't note her scheduled whereabouts or indicates rest, and another says she was supposed to be attending a virtual gala. A city spokeswoman defended dismissing the ticket, saying cops are allowed to run red lights under certain circumstances. Quote, the Chicago Police Department's mayoral security detail is responsible for protecting the mayor and her family at all times of the day. When traveling, this security detail is a 2-car team, a lead car and a tail car, that is trained to stay together at all times for the safety and protection of the mayor, the statement said. Any and all red light violations or speeding tickets dismissed by the city were done so when the tail car following the lead car became separated or in conjunction with the city's policies and practices when it comes to law enforcement vehicles.
So basically, like,
I don't believe that those cars were going to. Yeah, but I would imagine that those security detail cars probably weren't going the limit. Do you? That they couldn't all slow down and wait for the car behind them to stop at the light instead of speed through the red light or exceed the speed limit. Most of the tickets issued to Lightfoot security detail from the city's cameras are red light violations. So, oh my God, it's not about safety. Is it?
I would also hazard to guess, Jerry, that they were probably all going 9 to 11 miles.
Oh, sure they were. Sure they were. Limit. Everyone else in Chicago is making up for the city's budget deficits is what this is all about. Most of the tickets issued to Lightfoot security detail from the cameras were red light violations, but records show Lightfoot's administration dismissed 3 tickets against her detail where officers were going more than 11 miles over the limit. Some of the dismissed tickets were issued to vehicles assigned to police officers on the mayoral security detail, not the lead and tail car that the mayor travels in, the spokeswoman added. Lightfoot officials did not answer when asked who was responsible for paying the tickets. Former Mayor Rahm Emanuel faced similar questions about his security detail running red lights and speeding in response to news reports. Emanuel publicly told his detail to slow down and personally pay the tickets, ABC 7 previously reported. But even after Emanuel said no one is above the law and ordered the cops to slow down, his detail kept getting tickets. All right, so, guys, am I advocating for speeding and running red lights? Do you think that's why I'm bringing this story up?
No.
Okay, I'm not. There are instances where you have to make a judgment call if you're going, especially when we had the shorter yellow lights that they programmed to be able to ticket more people, right? Sometimes the whole aspect of this gotcha attitude in the city, while they're claiming it's all about safety, is bullshit. Because as we see, the mayor's motorcades don't slow down to avoid possibly running somebody down when they blow off a red light or when they speed to catch up with the other car. So it's not about safety, no matter. And the fact that these tickets are dismissed while they emphasize to the rest of us, we have to pay the tickets, we have to slow down, blah, 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 blah. So, guys, you know what I did, don't you?
Yes, Jerry, I do know.
What'd you do, Jerry?
Why don't you tell everyone
Jerry.
what you did?
No.
I'm going to be like a dog chasing cars on this. I'm not going to let go. I filed a Freedom of Information Act.
Oh, wait, hang on a second, Jerry. Okay.
This just in.
Let's see.
Jerry Vasilatos, co-host of Heartlands Media and Chicago Corner, decided to give the middle finger to Mayor Lori Lightfoot and her entire administration. Because let's face it, it's long overdue that a firm slap to Chicago politics is given directly to its face.
Yes!
All right, so here's the Chicago Public Record. This is a receipt I got. We'll see if they actually. I'm already imagining they're going to follow through with. Well, we can give you this, but you're going to have to file another request for this because this is what I requested. You've requested the following records, and this is what I wrote them. We, Chicago Corner, are requesting a transcript providing a full accounting for all red light traffic camera and speed control traffic camera citations issued to Mayor Lori Lightfoot's personal motorcade and security detail from the date she assumed office on May 20th, 2019 through the present. This request for all records is to determine every time the mayor's motorcade and her security detail ran red lights and exceeded posted speed limits during her term as mayor, and if they paid the associated fines or appealed any citations that resulted in dismissals. We are also requesting the destinations of the mayor's security detail as related to each vehicle citation to determine the circumstances under which any tickets were dismissed under CPD being allowed to speed or run red lights under certain circumstances to determine the veracity of any defense for any citation dismissal. That's why I think they're going to say, well, if you want her daily records, you're going to have to ask for that separately because I'm trying to put together the puzzle. I mean, the funny thing is, guys, I filed this report before I did some more digging around. I was looking for the Mayor Rahm Emanuel story that I remembered, but after I filed the FOIA, I found that article from 2020 about Lightfoot's motorcade being called on this before, right? So my interest in finding out what her destinations are to see is it actually city business that is related to when she gets the red light camera tickets or the speeding tickets, and whether or not they're dismissed. Because you know what? Once again, this is bullshit. This is if I get that FOIA filled, and we see whatever other violations that they've been cited with, then it's not about safety. It never was. And the fact that she lowered the threshold again, 5 miles above the limit, guys, come on. And these signs are in neighborhoods where it's like they're hidden behind trees. You don't even realize until you see the flash that you went down a street that had the lower 5 mile an hour threshold. It just really burns me because it's like, how many, and that these speed cameras and traffic and red light cameras are in more south and west neighborhoods where people can't afford this shit. There were stories a couple years ago about people losing their cars because they couldn't pay these goddamn traffic camera tickets all the time. Oreo, stop moving my lens. So, yeah, we'll see if the city is responsive to my FOIA request, and I will keep you up to date on that and let you know what happens. But I guess what I'm trying to point out here is the utter hypocrisy of our representatives. I don't even want to call this bitch a leader anymore because she's not. She's horrible.
Yeah. I would just hate to see them basically try and blow you off on this request.
Well, if they do, I will report it here, Ed, and we will continue to hammer them that they're basically trying to cover shit up and have us live by rules that they don't want to follow. Fines they want to assess to everybody. Again, I'm not telling everybody to go out and speed and run red lights. It's the hypocrisy of the system and the way it's set up.
So basically what you're saying is...
He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way. Now, do you want to do that? Are you ready to do that?
I'm totally ready to do that.
Not only that, but here's the thing, Jerry. What you're asking is actually for accountability. You're not asking people to break the law. You're not asking people what's up.
Kathy Powers, is this true that city council is not accessible? I'm assuming that she means to disabled people. Please get back to me on that, because if that's true, That's a major fucking lawsuit that I'm going to file as a disabled person. Go ahead, kid. Sorry. I saw that. I'm like, because I actually know some people. So there was just on a quick side note, the Ricketts family was cited in a lawsuit for Wrigley Field not being handicapped accessible. There's like a big lawsuit because they're not following Americans with Disability Act rules. Okay, Kathy, thank you. You know what? Thank you for that tip. We are going to follow through on that, Kathy, in a way that, ooh.
And we just recently had that story
Be sure to scout
about.
ahead. Be sure to scout ahead first.
I'm going to. No. I know people who actually prosecute this stuff and do the investigations, Kit. So
right,
I'm going to go ahead with what you're going to say.
So what I want to say about Lightfoot, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, and her actions, and you asking us FOIA, we're asking for accountability. Look, we see these politicians live their lives in pure luxury, and they don't follow the same rules we do. You think when these lawmakers write down these laws, they actually think, oh, wow, what I'm doing will also impact me too? No. They're in their own little safe space, their own little bubble. These politicians also have the audacity. And I just want to bring it to Washington, D.C. Let's take a point for Nancy Pelosi, how she and a lot of her Democratic and Republican friends in the United States Senate and House have access to insider trade information.
Oh, yes.
They're able to do all this.
Yep.
So are you going to look me straight in the eye and tell me that Lightfoot isn't going to bend the laws around the city of Chicago? She's the mayor. Why would she have to follow them? I mean, at this point in time with American politics, Americans across the board don't trust any of their institutions, and Chicagoans know all too well that our lawmakers in City Hall and with Mayor Lightfoot and her administration are more than willing to turn a blind eye to us and abandon us. Now, to be fair, there are a handful of aldermen and alderwomen that actually do care, but they're few and far between. But this mayor and most majority of the city council, they're bending the rules. How many times have we covered about them doing insider corruption or other shenanigans? And it's starting to become like we're used to it. So the thing is, you have every right to ask for this FOIA. You have every right to demand what is Lightfoot doing.
Call them out on the hypocrisy.
More importantly, you and everyone watching and everyone that's part of Chicago Corner and Heartland's media have a right to know what is the end result of this, so we can get the information and inform the people of Chicago and inform the people outside Chicago what Lightfoot is really doing and what is really going on. Because at the end of the day, all politicians are public servants and they work for us, not the other way around.
And they're not afraid of us. That's the problem. They're so used to just doing what they do what they want. They pander. They claim that they're doing. Are they literally laughing behind closed doors? I don't know, Kit.
Yeah, yes they are. No. Wait. I say this on the show, and I want this to be burnt in the minds not only for Heartland's media's audience, but for Chicago Corners. Your lawmakers don't like you, don't think about you.
Yeah.
They don't respect you. Those are the three things, and I end it with they don't respect you. It's like being in a relationship and the one partner doesn't respect you. Do you really want to be with that person if they don't respect you? If they really don't respect you? Our leaders don't respect us. Our leaders don't respect us. Do you think Lightfoot respects Chicago and its people? No, she doesn't. And she never will.
There was a comment I saw earlier in the chat that relates to what I wish I could remember what it was. It was a little while back. I'm scrolling through right now. I can't find it. Too far back. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you're always right, Kit.
Well, that's not going on. Hold on, wait. Edward, I'm sorry. Can you do the commercial, the breaking news?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can do that again.
I got something perfect.
Where is that?
We're going to get a copyright strike for it again, but I don't give a shit. I'll just remove it later.
That's enough.
All right, folks. You're hearing it here first.
Oh, you just saw something?
Buy Kit Cabello's latest book, I am always correct. Will the Kid Cabello, the story of triumph. I am always correct. And you know what? It's gonna be a picture of me with a glass of whiskey, with a fireplace in the background. I'm on the chair. I'm like, I'm just gonna cheer like I am always correct. And there's gonna be like a forward written by somebody like, this is Kid Cabello. He's always correct on every single issue. There you go. And it's gonna start off, I'm Kid Cabello, and I am always correct.
You know, as I was going through the live chat here to try to find that comment I can't find now, a couple people were commenting on the earlier story regarding NASCAR. So are they actually going to post the speed limit so you know what it is? How much money did Lori get for NASCAR? I'm dying to know. Now, on a positive note, might not reach all neighborhoods across the city, but
I'll have to return back in 1 minute.
Okay. They might end up, here we go. Lori Lightfoot. Lightfoot has done nothing for the neighborhoods. We have potholes ripped up streets for months and crumbling bridges. I'm sure that the potholes across the NASCAR route are going to be taken care of on those streets.
Yeah, and as far as the speed limit signs, you want them to add speed limit signs. They haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going to get them to start now?
So much good commentary in the live chat here. I'm trying to, a toast. There you go, Miguel. All right, man. Give me a moment to catch up here until Kit returns.
That's no problem. This break in the action is brought to you by
I found it.
Improving mugs, the mugs that improve flavor.
Do
you have a mug that doesn't improve flavor? Well, what are you doing with that mug when you could have a flavor-improving mug like the one you see here? Check out the link in the video below.
The comment came from the always wise Ilhanner. The haves need to remind the have-nots that they have a place and need to shut up and accept it. The rich never learn. They just get cruel. In response to what Kid had mentioned a moment ago. That was the comment I remembered that related.
Hey, suck it up and grab your bootstraps. What's a bootstrap?
You know, I think I jumped ahead. I missed the NASCAR story. Let me get that link up. We could talk about what that's all about.
Okay, you want me to play the video on that one?
Actually, yeah. Why don't you play the video?
I can do that.
When we're talking about speed concerns and safety, meanwhile...
The streets of Chicago next summer, and it's a first for the city.
WGN's Dana Revick is in the Streeterville neighborhood to tell us what streets will become the race course. Hi, Dana.
Hi. Well, NASCAR held a similar event in Los Angeles earlier this year, the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum, and they were looking to expand their race schedule with another similar event. Talks with Chicago started about a year ago, and today it became official. Against the backdrop of Lake Michigan and Grant Park, NASCAR will take to the streets of Chicago next summer.
This is number one on the list for us right now. And it's certainly going to be the most anticipated event of our season and one of the biggest sporting events in our country.
Can you pause it for a second, Ed?
Yeah.
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
Yeah, it's
story we just put it on regarding the drag racing and the civil asset forfeiture, and
yeah, it is. It's a kind of weird coincidence that this is happening around the same time.
Go ahead.
I saw Lightfoot come on television to talk about how they're two completely separate things, and it's probably just because she wants to get the notoriety and the money and whatever. Fast and Furious 15 Chicago Nights. Yeah, exactly. It's this would be a cool video game to play.
Right. That's all it would be, is a video game.
And in no doubt would it be pretty cool to have this happen in the city, but we have so many more priorities than somebody's ego to get NASCAR into the city, to shut down all these roads.
But let's take it a step further. We're not Monte Carlo, okay? Yeah. Our streets, our Lakeshore Drive, our streets were not designed for these high-speed race cars to fly around in this display of racing that the mayor thinks that the city's going to make a lot of money off of and get some kind of worldwide prestige from.
I mean, obviously they're gonna do stuff, like put up gigantic guardrails and stuff in the places where they're most likely to have issues. But yeah, I can imagine the possibility that one of these cars is gonna go flying
Right?
and end up,
That's right.
midair into one of the sides of the buildings downtown. And while it would be spectacular footage to capture, not really ideal.
I'll take you one step further, Ed. Flying over one of the barriers and hitting somebody in the crowd watching.
Yeah, that would be uncool as well. And then also, I mean, we are talking, about bullets flying in the city. Is that going to be another thing they're going to have to worry about while this race is going on? I'm like, dude, I just took that other turn and no, wait, hold on.
Hey man, I just took that last turn and somebody shot at me. There's like a hole in my windshield.
It is going to be like a video game.
Do I have to bring my car in for a pit stop for this? You guys have to replace my windshield?
It's going to be like a video game where the NASCAR drivers are trying to avoid getting shot at by people from buildings. So Pat Brannigan asks, where is this NASCAR thing going to be? Are we once again not going to be able to get places because our major streets are being used for another foolish event? It's bad enough with all the construction. Well, Pat, lest you forget all the streets that are going to be crowded and congested once that casino goes up.
Yeah,
and other money grab.
Yeah, I saw a story that said which roads or streets it was going to take over, and Lakeshore Drive was part of it. I'll bet this video covers some of that. So maybe.
Yeah, we'll continue. I want to give a couple props out to Constitutional Conservative, who's stealing the show here with the comedy. Truth, the comedy that's rooted in truth is the best comedy.
Grand Theft Auto Chicago, real life hookers, drugs, gangs, guns, homicide, and now fast cars. Coming to a video game near you.
Death Race Chicago 2024. All right, let's watch the rest of the video.
Our NASCAR Cup cars racing around the streets of Chicago is going to be something just incredible.
The NASCAR Cup Series race will take place the weekend of July 1st and 2nd on a 2.2-mile 12.
Yeah, you just saw that car crash into the other one, right? Yeah, okay, I'm just saying.
Temporary track running along portions of Lakeshore Drive, Michigan Avenue, Columbus Drive, and East Bend.
They said Lakeshore Drive. They didn't use the. They didn't. Isn't that great? Yes.
Look at that map there. Okay, yeah.
Ed, they called it Lakeshore Drive.
Yes.
Alderman David Moore is going to be really pissed.
Yeah, well, he probably. Well, I think they're just going to slowly just kind of, weave back into it with every news outlet.
I hope so.
Calling it Lakeshore Drive again just because it's such a pain in the ass.
Definitely.
So, yeah, here we are. Here's the racetrack. Lakeshore Drive, it goes to what? Christ. Oh, south of Roosevelt Road? It's going to turn on?
Do you know how narrow these streets are to begin with? This is insane. She's lost, guys. She has fucking lost her mind.
Well,
she's fucking lost her mind.
Okay, that's a weird. I mean, okay, no.
So Pat Brannigan shares, I live by the lake, and Lakeshore Drive is the only way to get downtown or to the south suburbs, southwest side.
It's good. I don't know.
Kathy's already working on a meme.
And they're planning on doing it on July 4th.
No. Play the rest of the video. Let's hear the rest of the details.
And East Balbo, approaching the northern end of Soldier Field with a start and finish line and pit road on South Columbus in front of Buckingham Fountain, and will be surrounded by music and
wait a pit road in front of Buckingham Fountain.
What?
It's like a pit stop where the cars pull over and like get their tires changed, or I've seen this in movies, race car movies, where like a pit stop.
They get their tires changed.
Yeah. Cars will fly into apartments with those narrow roads.
Okay.
in front of Buckingham Fountain, and will be surrounded by music and entertainment.
This is a huge, huge sports town.
It's huge. It's going to be huge. It's going to be bigger than my dick.
Something so unique as NASCAR to the city of Chicago, and I think it's going to be one of the most iconic race courses maybe ever.
exposing the
Get out of here! One of the most iconic race courses ever. She's
No.
out of her mind.
No, and I'll say it again. I think it would be totally cool to see this thing happen, but we have bigger
In a video game.
priorities. In a video game, yes, and we have bigger priorities in reality.
God, my Kit, are you speechless over there?
How is this going to work without there being an accident? I can see
Right.
an accident happening.
Flying into like one of the establishments on Michigan Avenue or anywhere that they're making a close turn. It's just insanity. It's madness.
Well, I mean, at least they're going to be close to the hospitals over there.
Go ahead, keep up with the video.
was an important factor for NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace, who spoke at the announcement event today and then drove his McDonald's car through the city on portions of the course.
Okay.
You're going to get that
McDonald's clown car.
Yeah. What do you say? All right.
Of the course.
You're going to get that next Bubba Wallace that's sitting in the stands like I was when I was 9 years old to be like, hey, I want to do this one day.
But I want to drive around a city race course.
Oh.
This is such a crock of shit.
And look at what they just cut to here.
Yeah.
As Chicago City Council
Right.
takes up a drag racing
Right?
ordinance,
Look at that!
the mayor on whether this event makes sense.
I think it's apples and oranges, right? I mean,
Oh, sure it is. Apples and oranges. My
No.
God. My
Our
God.
mayor's lost her mind. She's nuts.
Streeterville Drift.
McDonald's car. Wow, that's badass. Roll my eyes. Yeah. Guys, it's
You there, Terry?
yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I was just rewinding a little bit.
Yeah. To
Listen to let's get Lightfoot from the beginning here.
Michigan Avenue
I think
Drift.
it's apples and oranges, right? I mean, drag racing, what we're seeing is an uncontrolled, spontaneous events that
Mayor's gone nuts.
create a lot
Gone
of
nuts.
safety issues across our city.
Okay, pause it for a second, Ed.
Uncontrolled.
Look up contradictions and hypocrisy, and they should have a picture of Lightfoot, whether it's her motorcade running red lights and speed cams and everybody else having to pay the tickets while she gets off, or the differences between the dangers. Let's forget about like whether it's okay, the dangers related to a NASCAR race downtown. Clearly there are dangers with the street racing we just reported on.
Yeah,
Clearly there are dangers with NASCAR flying around downtown Chicago, but they're apples and oranges.
And did you pick up on how Lightfoot feels like the NASCAR event is going to give her the illusion of control of these vehicles? Yeah, they're still moving vehicles and they're moving fast. And sure, they have a designated race course, but you don't know if one's going to go flying off. You know, some tire's going to go flying in the side of a building.
Why tempt fate like this in an area that was not designed for this is what it comes down to. Simple as that.
And can I say that actually I don't hate her jacket. I think it's actually kind of a nice jacket for her. This is one of the few times I actually like what she's wearing.
You mean you don't? Well, I think that from my perspective, you like that outfit better than this one.
Yes.
Okay.
Completely different.
Chicago residents just hearing of the street race have mixed feelings.
I think it'll be really exciting to have NASCAR going through the same streets I drive through, but on the same time,
And get ticketed on.
Inconvenient and maybe a little dangerous and put people out.
I would love
Yeah,
to hear more
probably.
about what it will look like, what time of day, how much noise, and how it will impact the residents who live in the city.
Number one, I would love to be driving the NASCAR. Number two, I think it'll be a lot of fun just to experience and be a bystander.
The mayor says much work will go into this course and making sure.
Pause it.
Viewing it.
Do you know how much money that work is going to cost that we don't have for the mental health clinics?
Yeah, where's
for
the
the
money
youth
coming
centers?
from?
Chicago's broke. It's going to take a lot of work, but she will. You know what, Ed? It's going to come out of the TIF funds. You know it's going to come out of the TIF funds.
No, I can guarantee. I can guarantee, Jerry, that the money's not coming out of the TIF funds. That TIF funds is for my Double Bean project. We are taking the money out of something completely separate, which will probably be another thing that probably should have gone to funding something else.
I've got some early footage from the NASCAR race. There we go. And that's Lightfoot introducing it. She drove out in her special NASCAR car. There we go. Yes, that's it. You inspired me. Oh God, I can't. I feel like I'm living an existential crisis of nihilism, guys. Every time we report on this shit, it's that alternate reality that we think that you get your tail down. That I think we're living in. Those fools who were just interviewed supporting the mayor are why we're in such a sewer. Yeah, all right. You're right, constitutional conservative. Billions to build a racetrack that big in a city. Made pieces of broken cars rain on the bean. All right, enough of that. Let's go into the next story. Coming from Block Club Chicago and Mac Liederman. One step forward, two steps back, guys. The police oversight agency would be scrapped. Officers' days off protected under proposed ordinances backed by some of the aldermen. I'm not as focused on the officers' days off protection as much as I am on the police oversight agency being scrapped. So let's get into it. This is an ordinance that's being proposed that would also ensure families of officers who die in the line of duty to get benefits in a timely manner and require Police Superintendent David Brown to notify the City Council in writing anytime he's absent from the city. Okay, fine. Yeah, cops should get their benefits in a timely manner. I'm surprised they don't right now. But here's the meat of the story. A group of aldermen are calling for an end to the city's police oversight agency. As part of a package of they're packaging it, right? They're not introducing it on its own for debate and being kicked off because it's like a ridiculous proposal. It's part of a package of ordinances introduced Wednesday at City Council. The ordinances called the safety package, safety for the police. It is a safety package for the police because while it is focusing on police officers getting their benefits in a timely manner, it's also protecting police from any fucking accountability that's been put in place by the oversight agency that's been following police abuses. The ordinance is called the safety package would eliminate the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, a police watchdog agency that investigates when officers are accused of misconduct and use of force. It would be replaced by the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, a city-created agency meant to work with, not replace the police watchdog. A city-created agency meant to work with, not replace the police watchdog.
What?
It was unclear who would be responsible for police oversight under this ordinance. It's unclear, guys. They don't even have anything who would be responsible, but they want to get rid of the existing oversight agency. The ordinances would also give officers the power to decline having their days off canceled and ensure families of officers who die in the line of duty get benefits in a timely manner, among other measures. I have no problem with that. Days off canceled? If a day off is canceled because of an emergency, don't the police officers who enter service realize that that's part of their job? I will also say this, guys.
Jerry, don't they have a union that negotiates those types of things?
I think a lot of police officers, this is a job. It's not looked upon as a calling or a responsibility.
Well, the thing is, how many times we've seen the police, especially here with the CPD, ignore their duties?
Well, listen to what the article goes on to say, Kit. The package is meant to show support for police officers because they don't get enough support from the city, right?
Right.
As officers have said, morale is low and there is mental health crisis in the department. Hey, my heart goes out regarding the mental health crisis. But the officers claiming morale is low, maybe morale wouldn't be so fucking low if you guys, you asshats, you jagoffs, did your job, didn't violate people's civil rights, didn't shoot unarmed Chicagoans.
In the
Didn't
back.
Didn't chase
on
and shoot
camera.
people in the back on camera, right? I'm sorry. As I've said many times in the past, I have utmost respect for the ideals of what law enforcement is about. They're not exercised here in Chicago. And that's our problem here. That's my problem. I know about you guys, but that's my problem when we bitch about law enforcement. I mentioned a couple shows back how magnificently I feel the Highland Park Police Department managed what happened in regards to apprehending the killer, the murderer of during the July 4th massacre. All right? Because they're well trained and they are better trained. And I do think that probably officers in that community have higher IQs than the low IQ limits that they don't hold officers in Chicago to come up to, as I've heard. I mean, I've heard stories where candidates for the police department have not passed because their IQs are too high, because they just want people to like follow orders. They don't want people to think. They don't want to make people to make judgment calls. And when you have people looking at police work as just a job that they're entitled to with all of their benefits and their health and getting home safely every night, where's the part about actually protecting the citizenry? Where's the part about maybe making cops policing certain neighborhoods, living in the neighborhoods that they're policing? So it's more about coming together with the community, not looking at those in that community that they're tasked to police as the enemy.
They're wanting to get rid of COPA. They're not even listening to COPA now.
Right.
COPA just came out with the decision saying that they recommended firing the officer who shot that kid in the back when he was fleeing from a stolen vehicle, was unarmed, fleeing from a stolen vehicle. If he's not shooting at you, what are you shooting at him for?
You're not Judge Dredd.
And while he's running away from you.
You're not judge, jury. That's the thing, Ed. They think that they are judge, jury, and executioner. No. You are the first step in a system that is supposed to apprehend that nonviolent offender. Did you see how the Highland Park Police apprehended the killer? Get out of your car, lie on the ground. It followed the book. I mean, that's capture him.
No, it wasn't just that. It was, could you do us a favor? Could you do us a favor and put your hands on the window?
That was kind of funny that he didn't deserve, they didn't have to go that far. But compare that with police officers shooting nonviolent, threatening offenders in the back in the city of Chicago. They don't do that. They're not following the rules that they're supposed to follow. And while I understand, so a couple shows back, we had a police officer in the chat talking about the fact that police officers are taught to be afraid on the job. That's why we have these problems.
Failure of training.
Right. It's a failure of training. All right. So the article goes on to say, the attempt to end the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, which is COPA, is certain to face pushback from other alder people and from Chicagoans who have long called for more oversight of police and accountability. We don't want to handcuff the police. We want to see the police do better. The agency was only created in 2016 after the former watchdog, the Independent Police Review Authority, was dissolved after police killed Laquan McDonald and Rahm Emanuel covered it up, and officials were accused of trying to cover up the shooting. I kind of jumped the gun, no pun intended. The police department is still under intense scrutiny from everyday citizens and from the Department of Justice, which has been working with a consent decree to reform the department. Replacing the agency with the Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, as alder people suggested at Wednesday's news conference, was never the city's plan for oversight of the police department. The commission was created in July of 2021 as a civilian-led board to help shape police policy, working with the department, the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, and other city organizations. At Wednesday's news conference, alder people were flanked by families of officers who have died by suicide. They held photos of their loved ones. My heart goes out to them. Okay? But are we supposed to then take away the compassion that we have for people that are like shot down that weren't any kind of a threat? this is just like a propaganda thing. This is to me, this is a propaganda thing that's focusing more on the issue, the issues of the police department, what they don't think that they're getting, that they're entitled to, while completely ignoring the service that they're supposed to provide, that they don't feel that they're obligated to provide.
Yeah, and Kira and I talked about this on Tuesday regarding, mental health facilities. Look, law enforcement has stress and problems and issues that they deal with on a daily basis, as does a lot of people in the rest of the city. It did not help that they closed down all those mental health facilities.
No.
And so, let anyone in public service get the mental health support that they need. But don't coddle them just because they are, because they feel slighted at the even bare mention of needing accountability for their actions.
And Ed, you make a very good point, because that really is what this feels like. Oh, you hurt our feelings. We're doing all this. We're risking our lives sometimes. We're doing all this stuff and you don't appreciate us enough. You know what? I don't hear firemen. I don't hear emergency responders complaining the same way cops do all the time. And they don't shirk their responsibilities. Firemen run into burning buildings to save people and don't claim they feared for their lives. That's why they didn't go in. Healthcare workers, essential healthcare workers during COVID, the height of the pandemic, did not treat people because they feared for their lives. That's part of your goddamn job. If you don't like it, some members of CPD, I hear Streets and Sand is hiring.
Actually, I hear Domino's is short on delivery drivers too.
Yeah, there you go.
Ilhanor shares, cops spend over 100 hours on weapons training, where they're on the average spend 8 hours on de-escalation. That's during their training period.
8 hours de-escalation, 100 hours on weapons.
Ilhanor, I'd like to know we got that.
Be a little bit on
Flip those numbers.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll get somewhere.
Yeah. Ilhanor also shares, from St. Jimmy, there are two types of cops, the ones that bend to the system or they quit.
Yep. And if there are good cops, I mean, eventually either they do quit or they're pushed out. They are going to be pushed out.
Police oversight, what's that? All right, so going back to the article, we mentioned that older people were flanked by the families of officers who've died by suicide. Ryan Clancy, the brother of Patricia Swank, Oriel just thinks he's running the show here. A police officer who died by suicide this month said his sister frequently fretted about canceled days off. Swank sought counseling through the department, but she found she didn't have time for them and they weren't available for her. The safety package would give officers the power to decline the cancellation of days off, Napolitano said. How many workers in like regular jobs do you think might have a day off that their boss says, "I'm sorry, we're canceling your day off"? How many employees do you think could come in could tell their bosses and their managers, "No, I declined the cancellation of my days off"? Don't you think a manager would say, "Fine, you're fired"?
Well, I got issues with people's personal time versus people's work time. But,
all right, so let me frame this a different way.
Yeah,
let me frame this a different way. Let's frame this with firefighting. Let's frame this with emergency response services in an emergency. Okay.
Okay, that's more reasonable.
Same thing.
Comparison, yeah.
That's their jobs. Okay, it's a high risk job. I respect those that recognize the risk that go into it. I'm not taking away from it, but stop being a bunch of fucking babies.
Yeah, I mean that's a better comparison, Jerry. I mean, if a fire happens, you can't say, I got my day off. I guess I can't go out and fight that fire.
Just imagine how that would have worked on 9/11.
No. Here's the best one. Guys, do you have any idea how hot fire is? If we ran into a burning building, we'd all be burnt.
Yeah, can't be doing that.
Julia Troglia, excuse me, the widow of Officer Jeff Troglia, who died by suicide, said her husband was frequently getting called into work early and having days off canceled. She said Mayor Lori Lightfoot and Superintendent David Brown have been lying about the extent of cancellations. Okay, so this is horrible and it's tragic. Okay, if she's inferring that he killed himself because his days off were canceled, where's the mental health counseling to deal with that? I'm not minimizing whatever else he was going through, but to connect the two as related to the days off being canceled and not maybe, I don't know, demanding more mental health support, they might be chasing after the wrong issue. Clancy said officers dying by suicide and canceled days off go hand in hand. Swank worked an overtime shift the week before her death where she was punched, he said. She told Clancy she could not see her son in that condition. That boy of hers is what kept her going and kept her fighting, Clancy said. So going home to a house where she wasn't in any condition to be there, that breaks my heart. Officers need time to breathe, sleep, process the scenes, and feel like human beings, to feel like they matter. I truly feel this city has failed my sister and is failing officers that are still with us today. Okay, big surprise, guys. I agree with that. I'm not that hard-hearted about this. She's right. She's absolutely right. But when we know how much money has been going into police overtime and hiring more police officers, is that really about canceled days off, or the fact that they're not, the Superintendent Brown or the city is not properly providing the mental health services or the infrastructure needed to staff more cops? I mean, am I being unkind here? I'm like, I don't want to filibuster, but
Well, it goes to, just the whole organization of how law enforcement and public safety is supposed to be. They shouldn't have to be burdened by all of the responsibilities that they're being given, because there should be entire teams of social services and other types of support systems that could be responding to a number of the things that they're currently being employed for overtime for.
Yeah.
And also, and I brought it up before, the abuse of law enforcement to try and stifle public dissent, protest. The mayor should not be pushing anyone to do that. People should be allowed to protest peacefully without getting kettled and arrested for quote unquote curfew or time and place violations that are just arbitrary and just pulled out of their keisters as to whether they just want to shut somebody down.
yeah. Pat Brannigan, it is strange that every encounter I or my family has had with police officers has been a fairly positive one, save one incident years ago. Well, I'm glad to hear that. They should be positive encounters.
Well, they should, but they're few and far between.
Yeah.
How many people can actually say that they had it?
I'm seeing a lot of bad comments in the live chat from people who've had bad experiences with cops, and that speaks also. It's like, why do the cops look at all of us as like the enemy? We just are asking for them to I guess it's asking too much, guys. Live up to the ideals of what your job is about with protecting and serving. One of the proposed ordinances would give officials a 30-day deadline and give salary benefits to surviving spouses and dependents of officers who die in the line of duty. Elizabeth Huerta, wife of Officer Jose Huerta, said she's not received survivor benefits in the 7 months since his death, even after speaking with Brown and him promising that it would get done. Okay, so that's bullshit.
Yeah,
that's absolute bullshit. Huerta said she cares for the couple's 2 children, 11 and 14, and life has been challenging without the benefits. 70% of COVID funds went to the police. Well, I guess it was for overtime. I guess that didn't include the other services that the police are legitimately entitled to.
And then where is all that pension money going if it's not going to the survivors? I mean,
another proposed ordinance. It's a very complicated story to unravel with these ordinances. Another proposed ordinance in the package would require city officials who work in police oversight to take the same written test on use of force standards given to police recruits and to learn body camera practices with a simulator. Mayor Lori Lightfoot said she would not support the package, saying it would be inappropriate for City Hall to play a role in the department's management. Obviously, we're very concerned about the mental health and well-being of our officers, Lightfoot said during an unrelated news conference. What I don't want to do is, for the sake of pandering to a crowd, she's worried about pandering to a crowd? Do something that, frankly, undermines the I think we need to do the drinking game every time that Lori Lightfoot uses the word frankly.
No. We'll all die of liver poisoning. Come on. We'll all die of liver poisoning. We're not doing that.
Undermines the flexibility. that every single department needs to have to address emerging HR issues. And another proposed ordinance would make it easier for officers from other departments to transfer to the Chicago Police Department with modified training program. Tabaris also said Brown should notify the city council in writing anytime he is absent from the city. I'm not sure what that's about, but the Chicago Police Department has been decimated, and those who remain have to work an extreme amount of hours. Tabaris said, "Our city is in crisis, and our police department is broken." Well, I'll drink to that. All right, that kind of brings us to the end of that article. What else is there? The whole point of my sharing this is the whole idea of like repealing the accountability issues related to COPA is a bad idea. Not is it just a bad idea as far as making sure the police are accountable so we can keep track of these. It's a public relations blunder. If the police department wants to win the support of citizens across Chicago, that's not the way to be. You don't bundle, let's start repealing police accountability in a package of all these other things that, people would agree police officers need with getting their benefits in a certain amount of time, or, certain reexamination of their days off being canceled. It's just, to me, it's a little insidious deciding to wrap up we want to repeal that COPA thing. In this package, it's supposed to help cops who are suffering from suicide, mental health issues, blah, blah, blah. That's a separate issue, guys. Sorry, it is. So, anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Anything else from you, gentlemen?
Well, here's what we have to take away from this, okay? We got cops who are clearly not fit for the job. And a community, all communities, they're saying, all across the city of Chicago that are afraid. How are things going to get done? How's, I guess, order and safety to be achieved if one side doesn't trust the other and the other side views everybody as the enemy? It's a perfect recipe of here's the fire, here's the gasoline. Don't worry, nothing bad will happen.
Yeah. All right, guys. Let's get into the next story. We're kind of coming close to the end of the show. But, Kid, I know you're going to be all over this. So, Kira and Ed, you guys reported on this Tuesday. You reported on the front end of this story. Now information came out 2 days ago after your Tuesday show in regards to the Little Village botched implosion. The city council, even a broken clock is right twice a day, is pushing Lightfoot to release a full report on the Little Village botched implosion. What will the mayor do? This comes to us from Madison Saavedra at Block Club Chicago. The measure is non-binding, meaning it does not compel the mayor to do anything. It now falls to the city's Department of Law, which is under Mayor Lori Lightfoot's purview, to make the call. Wouldn't this be a great opportunity for the mayor to be transparent and win hearts and minds that she's doing something, to release that full report? Of course, yeah, thank you, Ed. The measure is non-binding. The city council passed a resolution Wednesday calling on Lightfoot's office to release the full findings from former Inspector General Joseph Ferguson, who was one of our great city inspector generals, I think, whose summary report on the incident was published earlier this year. The measure, which Little Village Alderman Mike Rodriguez of the 22nd introduced in January, is non-binding, meaning it does not compel the mayor to do anything. It now falls...
What does that mean, Vince? Hinky.
Oh, strange.
Weird. Why don't you say strange or weird? I mean, hinky, that has no meaning.
We say hinky.
I don't want you guys using words around me that got no meaning.
You know what? I take my earlier comment back about city council, a broken clock being right twice a day. This is the city council virtue signaling and pandering. The fact that this is non-binding means that they want to make it look like they're demanding that the mayor do something. But if she doesn't, it's okay. At least the city council asked for it, and it's in her lap. It's in her hands.
They politely asked her to do the right thing.
Right.
Even though that botched implosion probably impacted a lot of people's lungs and their health and their property and anyone else that was in the vicinity of said implosion, because at the end of the day, it's all too familiar. Any communities on the south and west side are always the first ones to deal with any kind of environmental disaster going on.
And you guys know what this is from Mayor Lightfoot. Lightfoot has said city law bars her from releasing the full report because, she's got no executive privilege. But Rodriguez and others dispute that. The mayor's office couldn't immediately be reached for comment on whether that stance has changed with the city council's vote. Good government should be about transparency and accountability. Well, then demand it. Don't make it non-binding. Rodriguez said in January, we need to restore justice to Little Village residents and neighbors. Ferguson's summarized report pointed the finger at 3 unnamed city officials, including 1 senior public health department employee. The watchdog said that official should be disciplined or fired for failing to act on knowledge the implosion would be disastrous. Health department leaders instead gave that person a written reprimand. I remember we reported on that last year. It was earlier this year. I'm losing track of time. 2 officials from the Department of Buildings also won't receive any punishment, though the report had recommended it. We're getting a lot of use out of these drop-ins, aren't we, guys?
That we are, and we love it.
The implosion at the Crawford site has been a flashpoint in the fight over environmental racism in the Little Village. Kit, can you tell our audience what environmental racism is?
Well, there's many ways to unpack what environmental racism is, but first and foremost, what you have to look at when it comes down to environmental racism, it is a situation in which you have an industrial facility or a polluter or any kind of really heavy industry being put into a working class community, predominantly African American or Latino, and the whole purpose of it is to, one, it is a practice and a policy that is done to do injustice towards people of color. And the sad fact is that this is something that's all too common all across the country. And it has to deal with the fact that, one, when we look at environmental racism, when you see these industrial facilities being put up, the main purpose of it is to displace and remove the said community so that the properties can be bought up at a cheaper value and they can then be gentrified to deal with what the aftermath of the white flight that happened in the 1950s and 60s.
So you would think that the mayor would want to be transparent about what's happening to win over the communities that people of color live in to, I don't know, what? Prove she's got their backs? Non-binding. And slaps on the wrist. What do we deal with here? Written reprimands, no punishment. Rodriguez Little Village residents and environmental advocates slammed the city for not punishing the official. They demanded better pollution controls, publication of the full report, and an apology from Lightfoot. The implosion at the Crawford site has been a flashpoint in the fight over environmental racism in Little Village. And the April 2020 explosion of the former Crawford coal plant coincided with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, leaving neighbors concerned over how the dust might exacerbate the respiratory illnesses. Activists didn't ask. They begged the city to halt the demolition. But it went on, blanketing Little Village homes in dust. Hillco Redevelopment Partners was slapped with $68,000 in fines. That's a pittance for them, for the mishap, and was forced to pay an additional $370,000. $370,000, in a settlement with the Illinois Attorney General's office. Hillco's warehouse opened a Target distribution center in July 2021, despite protests from community members, because when it comes to community development, doesn't matter what the fuck the community members want, guys.
Yeah. I also want to put on here, too, you can also identify environmental racism as the new Jim Crow. And it's a way to disenfranchise people of color. And more importantly, it is a way to discriminate and remove the communities that said politics or politicians don't like or don't want to represent. It's the more insidious face of gentrification. And when you have these polluters come into communities, especially on the south and west side neighborhoods of Chicago, we saw firsthand under Daley, under Rahm Emanuel, and continued on under Lori Lightfoot, people being displaced from their homes and apartments. You're seeing Chicago drastically change. And this isn't just a south or west side issue. This is a city issue as a whole, because these industrial polluters impact the air, the soil, the water. So I don't care what part of the city you live in, anywhere where these industrial facilities are being set up, all Chicago is being impacted by it. Just because you're on the north side or any other part of Chicago doesn't mean you won't be feeling it. It is a cause for concern, and it calls into question really the actions of all the aldermen, and not only this mayor, but of previous mayors who allowed this practice to continue on.
Pat Brannigan mentions in the chat, and I'm actually shocked this hasn't happened yet. Some good civil rights lawyers should go there and start a class action suit. Ilhan R. shares, America has always forced minorities to live in filth. They're forced off their lands and made to scratch a living of toxic water and food. How magnanimous our government is. Little comments. Kit worries about the environment because he's a hair farmer with a huge crop he doesn't want to lose.
Well, let's be very clear here while you are talking about that. Let's look at the other issue is that it does impact the health of people. And let's face it, you live in a polluted environment. I don't care who you are, men, women, young or old, black, white, Latino, doesn't matter the color of your skin or your ethnicity. I mean, it's going to severely impact your health, and it will make sure that you're not functioning. I mean, who wants to live their life living as half the person as they should be due to the fact that an industrial polluter has come into their neighborhood, drastically taking off 10, 15, 20, 30 years of their life?
Yeah.
I mean, it can be seen.
Pat Brannigan shares, let's all drink a toast to this. Hey, we are all Chicagoans and should look out for each other.
Agreed.
Love Tagore's got a great idea, and Kid, as we've discussed, sponsorship for 99 Perspectives and Heartlands Media.
There you go.
I think you need to find some hair care product companies.
L'Oreal.
Yes,
worth it.
yes, to do some endorsements for them. And Ilhan, I actually had this conversation with Kit previously. Kit, did I not? It's a good look for you.
Yep.
All right, let's go into our next story. Speaking of mayoral corruption, the mayor has got this blank check to just appoint whoever the fuck she wants whenever an alderperson resigns from a position. All right. Now, I preface with this story because there's actually going to be some good follow-up to this with a related story. But let's start here. Here's this Block Club Chicago, Kelly Bauer. Here's how Mayor Lori Lightfoot will pick the new 43rd Ward alderperson for Lincoln Park. Alderman Michelle Smith is resigning from her post as 43rd Ward alderperson, meaning Lori Lightfoot will get to appoint her replacement, as she has with Michelle Lee in Chinatown, as she has with, who was that other jagoff who got the cushy gig over at Cinespace, and then he had his sister and other family members. It's like a dynasty over there. I forgot his name.
I'm blanking on his name too.
Yeah, well, we reported on it. I mean, I lose track of all the filth, but all right. So Smith announced Thursday she'll retire in August to focus on her family and friends. It's interesting. So we had Kappelman drop out. He's not running again. Michelle Smith resigned. We reported previously in last Friday's show about another alderperson resigning. Do they know something we don't know?
That's a good question.
Seriously, it's a lot. Resignations before alder people who have literally made this their living.
Or they're seeing the writing on the wall as far as all the citizens that are getting frustrated with the things going on in the city, and they don't want to be associated with the current mayor.
Right. Which will be great when I get into the next stories after this regarding activist candidates. All right, so this clears the way for Lightfoot to pick an interim alderperson, the third time she's been able to do that this year until a permanent one is voted in during February's council elections. Lightfoot announced Friday in a news release how she'll go about picking the new alderperson for Lincoln Park. Here's the process. Interested candidates can submit applications to aldermanic vacancy at cityofchicago.org or mail an application to City Hall, care of the 43rd Ward Vacancy Committee. Applications are due 5 p.m. August 5th. Once the application period closes, the names and resumes of each applicant will be made publicly available, and the committee will review each application. The committees will review the applications, interview candidates, and recommend a slate of candidates to the mayor. Lightfoot will select the final candidate. The appointed alderman will serve until the aldermanic election in 2023. One of the things that struck me about the appointment of Michelle Lee, she had like a really well-paying job at United Airlines. She had no other like public service experience, and she got the gig in Chinatown. So I think they need to add to this list of the process of the requirements is, make sure that you're aligned with like a really big business mega company that can help line the mayor and the city's pockets. That's my speculation. So candidates must have lived in the 43rd Ward for at least.
Keep reading, Jerry.
Okay. Candidates must have lived in the 43rd Ward for at least 1 year prior to being appointed as an alderperson. The 43rd Ward covers most of Lincoln Park and includes portions of another North Side communities. Lightfoot is asking 43rd Ward neighbor. There's her first candidate.
There it is.
Applicant. Lightfoot is asking 43rd Ward neighbors for their input on candidates, something she did not do when selecting Alderman Nicole, like she would have listened to him anyway. Something she did not do when selecting Alderman Nicole Lee to represent the 11th Ward on the South Side, nor appointing, here we go, Alderman Monique Scott to replace her brother, former Alderman Michael Scott Jr., in the 24th Ward on the West Side. Residents can share the input online, and there's all those specs. Now, as I said a moment ago, why did I bring this up? Because we have a very interesting slate, I think, of activist candidates who are, I don't know, maybe smelling the blood in the water. And I hope that based on their service to the community, they have a shot. Here's the first one. Let me bring it up in my window here to read from. Vico Alvarez, Southwest Side activist, is running for 15th Ward alderwoman. Alvarez is the first to announce a candidacy for the 15th Ward, which will get a new alderperson with current Alderman Raymond Lopez running for mayor. Alvarez served as Alderman Rosana Rodriguez-Sanchez's new chief of staff. This comes from Back of the Yards via Madison Saavedra at Block Club Chicago reporting. I always want to credit our sources because, as I say many times, we are not journalists. We're just pundits with opinions.
Yeah, we are commentators.
We are commentators. I give the credit for these stories to the people reporting it at Block Club Chicago. A Southwest Side activist with political experience is running for a city council seat next year. Vico Alvarez, who most recently served as Alderman Rosana Rodriguez-Sanchez's 33rd chief of staff, announced Tuesday her candidacy for the 15th Ward on the Southwest Side. Now, Alvarez couldn't be reached for comment Tuesday, but she, quoting her, "I grew up in a working-class immigrant family and understand the importance of well-funded and healthy neighborhoods," she wrote on Twitter. "Let's make this a priority in the 15th Ward." The 15th Ward, which covers parts of Back of the Yards, Gage Park, Brighton Park, and West Englewood.
Yeah, I used to work near there.
We'll get a new alderperson in a 2023 election. Alderman Raymond Lopez, one of Mayor Lori Lightfoot's biggest critics, announced in April he's running for mayor. "I want to reaffirm my commitment to running for mayor of Chicago. I'm not running for 15th Ward." Alderman Lopez said in a statement Tuesday. I hope she wins, because if Lopez is giving up that, I don't like Lopez. I'll just be frank. I don't like him. So if he's going to abdicate his role as alderman to run for mayor and he loses and this woman wins, good for her. While working for Rodriguez-Sanchez, Alvarez oversaw day-to-day functions of the 33rd Ward office, including filing hundreds of neighborhood service requests, overseeing infrastructure projects, and assisting the alderwoman in policy research, according to her campaign website. Alvarez, a progressive and socialist, was criticized in 2020 after Northwest Side residents raised concerns over a post where she supported reducing funding to local police departments. That would be called defunding the police, not handcuffing the police, but rerouting all the money they're getting to actually create proactive solutions.
Yeah.
In a Facebook post, Alvarez shared a Sun-Times story and wrote, "Defund and abolish. You can get it done through hearings at City Hall, or the people will get it done on the streets by fire." The image of people standing in front of a building and a truck on fire came from a story about unrest in Kenosha after police there shot Jacob Blake. Some neighbors raised concerns about the post at a time when the city was struggling with spiking gun violence. Alvarez's position on public safety and police differs from Lopez's, who has a reputation on city council for being one of the most conservative members, particularly on crime. He was harshly critical of the mayor's approach on dealing with looting and unrest in summer of 2020, and he's made crime the center of his mayoral campaign. Pandering. He's made pandering to the police the center of his mayoral campaign. On Alvarez's campaign website, that's my opinion, she calls for a new, bold approach to deal with public safety, one that prevents harm and crime by treating its causes instead of punishing its victims.
That sounds really familiar, Jerry. I'm not sure where I've heard that before.
I'm all out. I'm calling to us to reopen public mental health clinics, invest in street outreach workers, alternative response models, and homelessness prevention, according to Alvarez's website. As Chicagoans, we have poured our tax money into policing for years, yet it has not prevented or solved crime.
Yeah, what was the statistic nationwide? Was like 2%?
Have you heard how many people are complaining or pointing to Jamal Green as being too young? He's inexperienced, he's too young. Well, interesting, because all those with the experience who are old haven't fixed a goddamn fucking thing.
Yeah, they're stuck in a loop.
That's an easy excuse for them because they're running on the fact that people are so used for them to being in office for such a very long time.
Yeah. Alvarez, who moved to Chicago from Texas in 2006 to attend the University of Chicago, has a passion for worker organizing and school arts programs, according to her campaign website. She worked as a campaign director at United Students Against Sweatshops and lead worker organizer with the United Steelworkers Union, and she taught art programs at Hernandez Middle School in Gage Park and Hamilton Park in Englewood. Kit, do you have any contacts for us to get her on our CAN TV Chicago Corner show?
Let's get her on the show.
I think she's a great candidate. I would love to meet her and present her to the rest of the city of Chicago, who might not be aware of her campaign yet. Lopez, a two-term alderman who grew up near Midway Airport, was first elected in 2015. Before being elected, he was a skycap for Southwest Airlines. All right, so Lopez said Tuesday he plans to support Robert Martinez, a former 15th Ward staffer who has not officially announced his campaign yet. All right, so that's the first of the activist candidates that are running for their wards. Now, here's another great one. Pull this one up. I want to give some shout outs to these activist candidates who I think clearly understand the needs of the communities that they want to run and serve in. Our next candidate is Uptown activist political organizer Angela Clay. Now she's announcing her second run for alderwoman. You know, Kathy, I believe Kathy lives in Uptown. I don't know if Kathy has any comments or thoughts on Angela Clay. And Kathy, if you do, please provide them in the chat. But let me read from Joe Ward's coverage of this story from Block Club Chicago. Clay seeks to become the progressive choice in the open race for the 46th Ward seat being vacated by Alderman James Kappelman. Now, she's a local activist and fourth-generation Uptown resident, and she's vying for the 46th Ward office being vacated by Krappelman. I'm sorry, did I say Krappelman? I meant Krappelman.
Yeah, you missed the first one, though.
Clay was among several hopefuls challenging Krappelman in the 2019 election that saw the incumbent narrowly retain his city council seat. But with Krappelman's retirement, Clay, and I say that because he was a shit alderperson. With Krappelman's retirement, Clay hopes to usher in a new, and we'll explain why in a moment, but Clay hopes to usher in a new era of progressive leadership in Uptown, one that is centered on a grassroots coalition building. I don't think that our constituents and our neighbors have felt their voices adequately being heard, Clay said, especially not from the last election that we had 4 years ago. We really have an obligation to make sure that they're heard. There's Angela. Clay grew up in an affordable apartment building in Uptown and was exposed to political activism at an early age through her grandmother, she said. She went to Uplift High School in the neighborhood. She serves as an organizer with Northside Action for Justice, a progressive group that advocates for economic and social justice. Clay has been active in local political causes, including the fight against a luxury apartment building planned for a Weiss Hospital parking lot, and Kathy's told us a lot about this.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. I remember.
The loss of single-room occupancy units in Uptown, and the plight of low-income residents in one subsidized Rogers Park building. As leader of the 46th Ward, she said she would translate that grassroots political energy into the office to better serve constituents and push for progressive policy. The policies that have been put in place in our ward speak for themselves, she said. It's really a time for individuals to bond together and really make their voices stand out at the forefront and hold people accountable for what they say they represent. Clay launched her candidacy for the 46th Ward seat July 9th at an event attended by progressive city leaders. She's in good company, Kit and Ed, including Aldermans Rosana Rodriguez-Sanchez of the 33rd and Byron Sigcho Lopez of the 18th. Former Uptown Alderman Helen Schiller was also present, according to her campaign. Clay was fourth in a field of 6 for the 46th Ward seat in 2019, earning 15.4% of the vote. Krappelman was forced into a runoff against Marianne Lalonde and won re-election by just 25 votes. Lalonde is also back in the 46th Ward race this year, as is Kim Walsh. Clay said she's running again to build on the momentum that she started in the 2019 race and has continued through the organizing on local issues since the last election. Article goes on, but one other paragraph here towards the end I think is relevant. The affordable housing Clay grew up in is increasingly hard to find in Uptown. While resources are being drained from neighborhood institutions like Uplift, Clay said, those trends will have to be reserved if Uptown is to remain welcoming to all. She said, if you want to know why African Americans are leaving the city of Chicago, it's because, well, we can't afford to live here. Or we can't afford to live in places that actually care about our children's well-being, their safety, their education, their health, she said. My family is literally trying to maintain its foothold in Uptown. We are all trying to make sure that our future generations have this same amazing dope ward to live in. Fair points. Guys?
I think it's a good sign. Like I said earlier, maybe some of these older people saw the writing on the wall, and when these progressive candidates and so-called activist candidates have stepped up to the plate and are trying to run, if they get a foothold and get the word out and find the popularity, they are going to win. So maybe some of these veteran older people are choosing to just retire rather than take a defeat.
I want to add in that when Hardlands Media, when Chicago Corner was a segment on Hardlands Media, all the aldermanic candidates that were on our show that we interviewed won their elections in 2019.
That's good to hear.
And I want to say there were like 5 of them that were on our show. There was one that we were trying to get on our show all the time that said aldermanic candidate. I will leave them their name not spoken of, but they lost their election by a few points. Maybe a few more people were watching maybe a segment on said aldermanic candidates. That person would have won, but nonetheless, anyone that was on our show did win. So maybe let's do a repeat of that. I think it's only fair. So let's do what we can, Jerry, you and I, to get them on Chicago Corner TV, so that then said interview can come out on Chicago Corner on YouTube.
I think I will subclip this segment and send it to all of them. And my final candidate who's running, you guys remember Mike Royko, don't you? Famous Chicago muckraker. Challenged the system, challenged authority when he was alive, when he was writing for the Sun-Times and then the Chicago Tribune. Well, his son announces a bid for First Ward Alderman. How about that? Mm-hmm. So Sam Royko, son of famed Chicago columnist Mike Royko, announces bid for First Ward Alderman. Royko has pushed for public safety improvements since his girlfriend was carjacked in 2021. He said he'll focus on improving constituent services and communication in the First Ward. There's Mr. Royko. This comes from Quinn Myers at Block Club Chicago. Royko formed the group after his girlfriend Erin Grobel was carjacked in Wicker Park last year. The Greater Westtown Community Coalition is the group. I'm sorry, Oriole, did I interrupt you? His girlfriend was carjacked in Wicker Park last year, part of a dramatic spike in carjackings in the area and city during the pandemic. Royko said the carjacking led him to get more involved in his community and ultimately run for alderman. We started to feel like we were making real gains by organizing and working together, and we thought that doing the aldermanic race may be the next step of being able to have more influence to make a bigger difference for our community, he said. Royko has become a frequent commentator on local media on the rise in crime, holding meetings, news conferences, and organizing letter writing campaigns to elected officials. In November, Royko's organization and 8 community groups sent an open letter to Mayor Lori Lightfoot, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, and all 50 aldermen demanding more transparency and collaboration from officials to prevent carjackings. Royko also advocated for a more cohesive ward remap process earlier this year to keep Westtown in as few wards as possible, which he argued would increase public safety. Public safety is of significant concern in our area, and the idea of having to advocate with 6 different aldermen to get things done sounds daunting, even more daunting, and we're already struggling to get those things, Royko said in November. Royko is the first candidate to announce his candidacy for First Ward Alderman in the February City Council election. Incumbent Daniel Espada declined to comment Tuesday and has not yet announced his plans. Another one who's like ready to bail ship. Westtown resident and political campaign employee Lauren Young filed paperwork to run last week, but has not jumped in the race. I'm currently exploring the options available to ensure the wants and needs of the hardworking, community-oriented residents of the First Ward are properly represented in the City Council, Young said in a statement last week. In an interview Tuesday, Royko did not directly criticize Laspada, but he said as alderman he'd focus on improving constituent services and communications with First Ward residents. I want to make sure that we're making constituent services, we're making communication with our constituents, we're making that a priority. I think it's time that we make the First Ward a ward that everyone can be really proud of, he said. I think public safety is a huge area of opportunity for us right now. I think constituent services is going to be a huge area of opportunity. Now, for those that don't remember his father, Sam's father, Mike Royko, is arguably the most famous Chicago journalist of all time, having written almost 8,000 columns over a more than 3-decade career at the Daily News, the Sun-Times, and the Tribune. He frequently told stories of the everyday Chicagoan while also lambasting politicians of all stripes, especially aldermen. That's why I can. This story touched my heart. But Sam Royko said his father's legacy is one of the inspirations for his aldermanic campaign, and he thinks his dad would be really proud. I grew up hearing whenever I gave my credit card or my ID to someone, "Oh, was your dad Mike Royko?" And then I hear a story or hear how they'd read him every day and it just made them smile, or no one else got us like Royko did, and how he helped them when they had an issue with the city, when they were being bullied, when they felt like no one heard their voice. And I'm trying to bring that to the First Ward, he said. I'm trying to bring that representation, that advocacy to the First Ward. Royko is a partner at the L&G Law Group, according to a news release, but said he would be greatly reducing his time there over the coming months as he focuses on his campaign. I wish him the best of luck. I think that would be a fantastic candidate to serve the First Ward.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he can accomplish.
Let's see what happens.
Last story. It's kind of our feel-good story just because it's, you know how much I love old Chicago architecture and old Chicago history. This came across my radar and I thought I'd just share it. I think it's kind of cool. Rare, decades-old ghost signs have been revealed on Lakeview buildings facing demolition. That's the sad part of it, but we have a moment to discover these. It's like urban archaeology. You know, like archaeology in ancient times would be like the pyramids. Well, here are buildings that are torn down, revealing things from the 1920s and 30s. Well, I've seen other ghost signs representing the 20s and 30s. These are from the 1950s. But so what's interesting about these signs is that they're on wooden sidings of buildings when they were usually painted on brick and mortar. The siding on a wooden 2-flat dating back to the 1890s was taken down recently, revealing well-preserved walls of advertisement for Shell Oil and Wonder Bread's predecessor that might date back to the 1950s. Colorful, decades-old ads that were hidden away for years have been found during renovations to a building in Lakeview. The logos used date back to 1948 and 1955. There are also banners for Ward's soft bun bread, which later became known as Wonder Bread, and for car services. The painting ads were shielded from Chicago's elements by the now removed siding, and they've remained largely intact through the years. The building itself has quite a history, said Larry Hammond, who rented and ran a pet daycare there for 20 years. The building used to face Addison Street. Hammond said building was rotated towards Ravenswood between 1923 and 1950, as seen in Sanborn fire insurance maps of the neighborhood. Interesting. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of cool. A garage where neighbors used to house their buggies was later used by Hammond to house cats at his daycare. Around 1950, the building was a machine shop with a greasing shop and filling station adjacent, according to a Sanborn map from that year. While at the Ravenswood building, Hammond befriended neighbors and served them and their pets for 2 decades. He moved out in March as the owner began selling the space. A 6-story development will replace the building, the adjacent strip mall, and another multi-unit home. The transit-oriented development will include 52 residential units and ground floor retail. But if you're in the neighborhood, before the corner of Addison and Ravenwood meets the Wrecking Ball, residents have been flocking to the vintage ads, also fondly known as ghost signs.
Ooh,
Yeah,
there you go.
there's a lot of cool ghost signs that get uncovered. A lot of times it's like when you have like buildings that are right up against each other.
Yeah.
And sometimes one of them gets torn down. And then you see this sign that looks so pristine because it had never gotten any sunlight. You know,
Or is that,
it
hey,
looks
don't
almost
forget what we're seeing at Fort Illinois. Lead paint, it lasts.
Yeah, it does. Let's see if I can pull up some close-ups
Just
here.
don't eat it. Don't eat the paint.
So I will share, now that I'm probably out of the statute of limitations, my experience in urban archaeology when I was young and stupid. Being the suburban kid that I was, me and my best friend Steve, he had a red Trans Am. We used to ride into the city on weekends, Fridays and Saturdays, and visit the old Granada Theater that's now gone.
Oh.
Granada Theater was a beautiful movie palace over in the Loyola neighborhood. Not only did we visit it as it was shuttered and abandoned, we used to think of ourselves as Indiana Jones and climb the fire escapes to the roof, find the skylights over the projectionist booth with a rope and pry bar that we used as a hook, lure ourselves in like we were entering the Well of Souls and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and explore the inside of the old Granada Theater, which is gone now. It was just, with respect, I mean, we weren't there to vandalize it, but when I talk about urban archaeology, this just kind of reminds me of that, finding these old, beautiful, lost era signs, buildings, beautiful reminders of I guess, a grander and more glorious and magnificent era with architecture and places in Chicago. Here's some close-ups of these ghost signs. Kind of cool. Anyway, as I saw this article, I was just reminded of my adventures in urban archaeology with my old buddy Steve. I thought that this would kind of be of some interest to our viewers that are also hopefully interested in Chicago history. So, I mean, we've lost a lot of institutions. We've lost Dinkles. We've lost Chicago Joe's. We've lost a lot of businesses throughout the neighborhoods that have been here for a really long time. So when I see these ghost signs, I'm also reminded of all these, neighborhood institutions that we've been losing as a result of business challenges after the pandemic.
Yeah, we just lost the Bridgeport restaurant over on Halstead.
Oh, come on.
That they just closed.
Going further in the article, he says it's just pop-up history that randomly pops up due to construction or deconstruction, Brand said, and they're only there for a minute. You get these glimpses into the past, and then they're gone. So with that, I guess if you're in Lakeview in that neighborhood, when was this article dated? This was...
Get those photos while you still can.
Yeah, this was July 19th. So, and yeah, thanks, Joe Moore. El Hodder, my grandfather grew up in Chicago in the 20s and 30s. Mine did too. My two grandfathers, my mom's dad, he owned a liquor store and soda fountain, and then my dad's dad owned a dry cleaner, shoe repair store under the L on Lake downtown. I love going through old family photos and seeing my relatives from other times. Anyway, I digress. Guys, we're coming to the close of the show. Anything you would like to share as we go into the weekend?
First, I'm really proud of all the work that we're doing here for Chicago Corner and
Well, thank you.
Chicago Corner Can TV, Heartlands Media,
And I thank Ed and Kira also for being such a great part of that.
It's only the beginning, but Jerry, just to let you know, we have spoken to a few of these interns that we are reaching out to for Heartlands Media and Chicago Corner, and already speaking to them, I am really impressed with what they can do. So the interview process being taking place, there's going to be a second interview that's going to be taking place as well. So maybe over the weekend we can talk about it. I've talked about it on Heartlands Media on Patreon as well. So some good things are happening. And it's long overdue they come to fruition.
Sounds good to me. Ed, anything from you? And I'm also grateful you're not the disembodied voice tonight. I love having your expressive face and your very calm commentary to I don't know, like contrast my very emotional outburst. I do appreciate it. I know sometimes I get riled up, but I like the fact that you can kind of rein things in. So I just want to thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem, Jerry. It's nice to be able to come on and cross my fingers and hope that my stream and my computer are all working in a way that where I can do a high resolution upload of my wonderful features with Meatwad in the background over there, and I'm happy to join you when I can. Sometimes I don't always feel like I'm looking my best, but I know I can talk up a storm, and and if it's a situation where the show is one of those things where I'm just kind of helping out with pushing of the buttons, sometimes it helps out when I have my camera turned off. It's more important from my perspective that you hear what I'm saying rather than see me say it. But I'm always happy to come on camera and join you all and have people find another target to focus on when we are live streaming. If you guys want to find me, I have a Twitter account for my pizza account called RDD Pizza, as you guys can see on screen. I have a website that teaches you how to make Chicago-style pizza at home called realdeepdish.com. And if you don't mind, I could share what that looks like really quick here. Here we go. That's my website. It's realdeepdish.com. And I, occasionally I'll post articles here. There are also links to the social media. Like there's a Facebook page where I very often will post photos of the pizzas I'm making, usually on the weekends. If I'm doing any kind of testing out a new dough formula or something. And some of that stuff gets funneled over to Instagram. I don't do a whole lot on there. And I will sometimes post photos on Twitter as well. You guys want to talk to me, ask questions about pizza, you want to try making pizza at home, and if you have a Facebook account, it's probably the easiest way to go and find Real Deep Dish on there and like the page, leave a comment. You can leave comments on the website. You can send me a message on Twitter, and I'll be happy to try and answer your questions. I'm a home baker. I'm not like a restaurant guy. I don't come from a huge restaurant background. I mean, when I was younger, I worked part-time at a White Castle to make ends meet during some of my college years. So I have worked as a dishwasher and a prep cook for a few days in some restaurants, but mostly I'm a home cook, and so that's where almost my testing comes from. So when you're trying to make pizza at home, that's the perspective I'm coming from. I test these recipes in a home oven. I'm hoping that your home oven is similar. Your results may vary, but I'll get you in the ballpark so that you'll have something that's pretty close to good on the first try. And I always try to make my pizzas better. I know you guys will probably do the same when you're cooking or baking. You just, these things will come out good, and then you say, how can I make it better next time?
I have never even wrapped my head around how to make a deep dish pizza at home, because it just seems like I can't do that. I don't have those big ovens at the pizza places. And here, Ed is providing all of us, yes, it is flavor enhanced pizza, providing us with resources to make pizza at home that will rival the pizza we overpay for at any of our fine establishments throughout Chicago. Not that I'm knocking them, But yeah, it's expensive. It's good pizza is really expensive. So
Yeah, and the
it's
inflation
great
is trying
services
to kill
provided.
it.
But it's not. I mean, it is nice to support your local businesses
Yeah.
when you're able to support your local pizza joints. You know, they've been doing this stuff for a while. They know what they're doing. But once in a while, if you got time, you know, you got an extra day, you know, take a couple hours out of one of your evenings and make some pizza dough. You know, let it rise, stick it in a Ziploc bag, shove it in your fridge overnight, and then the next day you got some pretty decent pizza dough to work with. You can use that, put it in a cake pan, or if you got yourself one of those perforated little pizza pans, and then it's just figure out your sauce, figure out your cheese, figure out your toppings, and then mess around with your oven temperatures and times. You'll get there.
We got it. And you know what, Ed? While I've got 19 viewers in the chat tonight, I'm going to pimp my website. All right? Because you know what? For the first time in I don't know how many years, I invented a product with my dad to help cane and crutch users get across the sand to swim because regular cane and crutch tips sink in the sand. Well, in the 8 years I've been selling these things online, actually 13 now, since I originally conceived of it to solve my problem and tested it and made sure that this product worked, I haven't been to the beach in I don't remember how long. And I went today. And I'm very proud. Well, first of all, my product worked, but it was a really nice day at the beach. And I got to go into the water and get across the sand with my crutches without my prosthetic limb. We call it the Easy Walk Sand Pad. And as we're in the middle of the summer, everybody, if you or anybody that you knows has mobility issues and uses canes or crutches, this is what you want to get. And I'll let that video run in the background. I won't turn up the sound. But essentially, it is this disc that you see that you can just attach to your cane or crutch. And what it does is it prevents that from happening. It's not just for sand, though. It's for rocks, mud, wet grass, as well as regular paved surfaces, because it will freestand your cane. I've never pimped this on the show, but now that we're in the middle of the summer and this is the high season for this thing to get its use, that's how it works for you. So I hope, first of all, I hope nobody has to use canes or crutches, but if you do, this will solve some of the challenges that you might have to deal with getting across the beach or using it with a cane every day for all kinds of multiple terrains, as is demonstrated there. It's very lightweight. Was originally called the Sand Pad, but some of my resellers thought that was too regional and too seasonal for beach use, so we also subnamed it the Easy Walk Sand Pad. So there you go, as Kit would like to say. You can get them at www.easywalkpads.com, or if you're thinking about using your crutches in the sand, thesandpad.com.
Jerry Ilinar asks a good question. How are these things doing in snow, ice, wintertime?
So
have you tried one out then?
They work in snow. They don't work on ice. Nothing works on ice short of metal cleats. So I don't advise people get these and use them on ice. You can use them in packed snow and get some what's the word? Some stability, right? But
like a snowshoe would, right?
Yeah. But you got to be careful walking on ice with your rubber-soled shoes to begin with. So yeah, we do not recommend you take or wet tiled pool decks. You got to be careful there. Anything that's wet and slick or slippery, it's really more to give you that stability over surfaces that are going to sink with your cane or crutch tips going down, and then you kind of get some battering in your shoulder. So that's all I got.
Yeah, but if you've just got a cane or a crutch without one of those things, I would imagine it's going to be more treacherous in those types of winter conditions, right?
Well, you can put the pad on your cane or crutch and it works in the winter. I mean, I'm careful anyway when I walk in the winter.
Yeah.
But I've got an Easy Walk pad on my cane and I use it. I don't switch over to a regular cane anymore because it freestands my cane. It gives me more stability underneath me everywhere I go, even just like regular sidewalks. So that's our show for tonight. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. I know we went a little bit long. That's what she said. It's always a pleasure to cover everything Chicago. So I will talk to you guys soon. In the meantime, to the rest of my viewers, as we go into the weekend, as I always advise you, please stay safe, watch out for each other, be vigilant on those streets, take care of each other, and remember, if it's happening on the streets, you'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner. Stay safe, Chicago.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.